Okay, so welcome to A Cast on Titan, and we're back after the Chapter 86 recording. Here we are for Chapter 87. You'll notice that nothing has changed at all. We're still totally just like you last heard us. Not a thing has changed. So, disclaimer before we start Chapter 87, just in case you didn't hear it the first time in Chapter 86, and that this is a Manga Spoilers podcast, which means if you have not read Chapter 87, you should go read it, and then can come back later to listen to this. Okay, so now that the disclaimer is out there, let's go ahead and move on into our introductions and impressions of Chapter 87.
Alright, I'm Scott, also
What?
Scott V20
Who are you?
subreddit.
When did you get here?
I am alive. I have awoken from my slumber, and I'm here.
You are both never on this podcast and never on the subreddit. Therefore, that introduction is invalid.
Can you
Thank you for that.
Can you teach Annie how to do the coming out of a crystal thing?
I wish I could, but unfortunately I cannot. Yeah, I think Chapter 87 was good in what it, in the best way it could be. I mean, it was exposition galore, the same as the previous 3 chapters. But I think it was good for what it served, just progressing the plot forward in pretty much the most arbitrary way possible with text and essentially nothing else besides a couple of cool shots. But it was good overall. I enjoyed it.
Good. You haven't lost your touch at all.
Thank you.
My name is Ryan. I go by WX Bombadil on the subreddit, and I've been pretty happy with the last couple chapters. Just like Scotty was talking to, we're getting a pretty big info dump here as far as the exposition is concerned. And, up until this point in the story, we've always been, talking obviously about so many questions about the outside world and wanted to know more about it. And especially ever since Eren, got his powers from Grisha, where we were talking about, what memories does he have, and kind of figuring we were going to learn the story from his memories, which we are seeing in progress here. So it's kind of cool that we're finally getting to that point. I think it's actually quite exciting to where even though the story in the present day isn't really moving forward that much, we're still getting a ton of information on the story, which I think well makes up for it in terms of what I was looking for in this section of the story.
I was mid-yawn, and I've got a lot going on right now, so shut up.
His name is Darth. He has a lot going on right now.
No, no. My name is Zach. Not spelled with an S. Okay, Stiller. I know it's been like 3 years, but you still.
We can't not spell it with an S.
It's spelled with an S. Yeah.
You even spell it with an S in mod mails.
That's because I'm on fucking point.
I am ZACH, and I.
Saw an S.
Fucking hell. I am a moderator on the Shingeki no Kyojin subreddit, and it was a good chapter. Shit happened.
Alright.
Poignant as always.
I'm tired and I've got shit on my mind. What do you want?
I want you to talk on this podcast.
You know what, Stiller? Last week I had to explain the entire chapter to you and Ryan like 3 times.
Well, whose fault is that?
Yours!
I blame the school.
Isayama's.
I blame Isayama, exactly. It's not our fault. He fucking dumped all that shit on us in 1 chapter. Am I right?
You're right.
Thank you. All right.
It's not like you had 2 months to digest or anything.
No, not at all. It's not like
not
that
at
at all. I am Stiller 3 from the Shingeki no Kyojin subreddit. I'm one of the other moderators. And Chapter 87 was a lot easier to digest than Chapter 86 was. That does not necessarily mean it was better, but it was fine. It was
We
good.
saw Grisha dick.
It was good. I think all the stuff we saw on the subreddit about the World War II tie-ins and the Holocaust and all this comparisons to the Jews and such, I think it actually more came from this chapter than it did the previous. Although they are kind of spread out into all 3.
It like started in the previous one and it's just been ramping up since then.
I thought the previous one was a little more upfront about it with the whole armband thing.
I think on a larger scale, all 3 of these chapters, 86, 87, and 88, all kind of, I think, should be categorized sort of as the same set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all going to be the same volume, basically.
This should have its own arc name, basically. This is like the Flashback arc,
This is the Ghetto arc.
Yeah, but Chapter 87 was fine. Chapter 86 was fine. I really didn't. Nothing particular about either chapter that I hated. So, I mean,
I do agree with you, though. It feels like this one was a little easier to digest.
Very much so easier to digest. a lot less shit to have to remember.
Yeah.
Like in our previous recording, we actually were referencing this chapter a bit because it helped explain things. So yeah. So now that we've done all of our impressions and introductions and suds and all that fun stuff, we're going to go ahead and start talking about the chapter in proper and sort of go round table here and see if there are any major questions that we should address, if anybody's confused about anything, or if there's anything that anybody wants to point out that was cool in this chapter, or whatever order we want to go about this in. I want to start by talking about the very last panel, because we have mentioned this like 3 or 4 times before we started recording, and that the last panel of Kruger in the Titan form, putting that boat in the torture rack, breaking it over his neck, it's awesome.
It's pretty hardcore.
Would be proud. Bane would be proud.
Oh yeah, great shot.
It's very good.
I like the little guy falling out of the boat.
It's probably my favorite page of the chapter. I think it's got to be up there.
Speaking of things like that, if we have any questions about the chapter, and for me personally, it might be just because I read this chapter recently, it's like super recently, there would be more things to say I understood than things I didn't understand, or the opposite way around. Whichever way, I'm confused about more than I know, I'm sure now, with this chapter.
You're topsy-turvy right now.
I am.
Don't worry, you're not alone.
But because since I read all 3 chapters in succession, it does seem as though it flowed very well as if it was one large chapter, and the information kind of like goes along in the same format. So there's like everything to, Marley or whatever that group, Marley versus Eldian, is that it?
Eldian, Elodian,
I'm going to call it E and M. I think that's going to simplify it.
Yeah, it's the Marley or the Mare versus the Eldians or Elodians.
Yeah,
and those name differences are just translation differences, I think.
Yeah, they really are just...
Yeah. I've been
because like the Japanese don't really have that distinction between the L and the R, so Marley, male. Yeah, it.
The Bob Marley people. I'm a fan.
That would be a very different nation.
The Bob Marley Nation.
I choose to assume that's what they're trying to do here.
Whatever.
And the theme for them would be Exodus.
The wimpy Exodus.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Look at this. Yep. So let's start from square one, or should I say page 1. Basically, we have, it's pretty straightforward. They try to indoctrinate their son Zeke, and it kind of backfires on him. Kind of leads to the whole beginning of the end for everyone.
Well, more to the beginning of the series, but okay.
So
sure, I know what you mean, but beginning of the end for the Elodian resistance, if you want to call it that.
I kind of want to go back to our discussion in the last recording, because I think the first couple pages of this chapter kind of contradict some of the theories that we had about. I think you and me, Zach, had said that potentially Grisha had implanted like a double crossing type of thing in Zeke, so that he was meant to out his parents, but actually had some kind of plan, for later times.
Right.
I think the first couple of panels is like seeing the text boxes from Grisha's perspective, and seeing him talk about how he failed, and how terrible a father he was, and how all this shit shouldn't have happened because he was doing the exact same thing his father had did to him, and he had kind of passed that on. This kind of looks like damning evidence that that's not the case.
Well, I don't remember ever saying that it was Grisha's idea. I'm pretty sure I was adamant that it was Zeke came up with the idea on his own of, oh shit, I'm not going to become a warrior at this rate. I need to do something drastic to stand out. So this doesn't really change that.
Well, he needed to do something to not get sentenced like his parents did.
Oh, they wouldn't have gotten sentenced if we hadn't turned them in.
I think something that's worth noting, and this is really just pure speculation, but kind of going along the idea that the theory that he could be somehow, double, triple agent. Now at the end of the chapter, we have the reveal with the owl, and we know that he's been undercover with the Marley this whole time. I wonder, and again, I have no way to confirm this, if he had any influence regarding Zeke, or if he was just completely isolated, and cut off in a different part of that organization. But now we only got that reveal at the very end, knowing that the whole time, all the way since Grisha was a kid, the owl was there, kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes. I wonder if he had any influence, with regard to Zeke and his kind of turning, and if Zeke really is some kind of double or triple agent. I wonder if the owl has any influence on that.
At the very least, he had to be aware of it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So if there is some kind of impact as far as Zeke maybe pushing him along in rank or getting him assigned specific roles, that would be something
I was thinking the other way around. Because I think we were talking about, obviously we're talking here when Zeke's still a kid, he was indoctrinated by Grisha to do his work, and then he got turned. We don't know the details of it, but at some point he apparently, to the naked eye, got turned into essentially a double agent for. So
you're thinking that the owl was actually the one who?
Well, I just wonder. I wonder if he had any influence or involvement in that whatsoever, or if he was completely separate. Because if it's what you're saying is true, and there's a potential that Zeke is in fact a triple agent, where he's pretending to be on the Marley side for the long con, you got to wonder if the owl had any part in that too, if he was involved. So it's just again, it's pure speculation, but wonder if there's some fishy stuff involved that's not, that everything isn't as easy as straightforward as meets the eye. I would wager that the owl would be involved in that somehow, just based off of knowing how much behind the scenes involvement he's had up to this point without anybody knowing.
Would that have been possible though, with the fact that before the owl's death, he tells Grisha like, I would have been able to. It was a good plan you had to send Zeke up the ranks.
Oh, that's 88 info, Scotty.
Oh, well, it's still relevant because the chapter has come out by now.
Oh,
well, let me put it this way: last time when we did 86, we talked bits about 87. I think it's just impossible to ignore it, know it with what we know.
All right, so I guess I'll just continue on. The owl said to Grisha, it was a great plan you had sending Zeke through the ranks, or what you were planning to do before he double-crossed you. And then he said it would have worked too, because I would have been able to help him and push him through, being infiltrated into the government. So him saying that implies that he didn't actually do that.
If he's telling the truth.
Right, but I don't see why he would arbitrarily lie to a person that is going to eat him. Like, what would the point be of him lying at that point?
Well, maybe he needed Grisha to think that he was gone, so Grisha wouldn't have any reservations about what he had to do next.
I suppose.
I mean, it's again, like I said, it's all speculation at this point, and pretty far-fetched, to be honest, from what I'm saying. But I feel like if there's anything going on behind the scenes, the owl's involved somehow.
I think it's funny how many of these bits of dialogue and how many bits of these stories, propaganda and such, how many of these things are questionable, how much of it is bullshit, and how much of it is actual fact. And, we have a lot of that going on right now, where it's kind of hard to see what's true and what's not coming from people.
Well, and that's something we talked about earlier when we were talking about the histories, as told by both the the Marley and the Elodians, and it calls into question. And obviously, as Zach mentioned, it happens later in chapter 88, but the whole thing is called into question about whether any of it's even real. Whether both sides even have accurate information. So as the reader, obviously Isayama's trying to drive this point home that we really don't know and can't put any stock of certainty into the truth of either of these narratives from either side. Right,
and that's definitely drawing a line so that we have our shades of gray between the two forces, and we don't actually have a real, goody two-shoes sort of good guy force.
The old shades of gray theme back.
Yeah.
It never left us.
It never did leave. Okay. It actually is the best theme we have, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's the driving force behind the story.
I thought it was kind of
what makes it compelling.
It was kind of funny when Scotty was reading through chapter 86. I think you at some point you had actually pointed out how Grisha was kind of full of shit when he was questioned about where he had gotten the source of his information, right?
Yeah.
That's the most hilarious part of chapter 86 for me, is because he's to me it read like he was saying he believed all that information because he believed it, more or less.
Right. Like, I mean, it said, how did you know the translations? Like, you did that pretty quickly.
Because
and the guy's
I believe.
like, yeah, he's like, I don't know about the fucking translations. I just looked at the pictures and made my own story.
Power
and
it's like, all right. Brother.
Yeah, it sounds right to my own ideology. It's like, yeah, well, that's, probably what Marlene's or whatever they did. So.
Kind of nonsensical, I think.
Right. And also, I mean, I think this is, I'm pretty sure, part of 86. But something else that caught me off guard was when it said there were tens of millions of Titans in the walls. I don't know if you guys touched on that, but that's I don't know how big these walls are, but do you really fit tens of millions in?
Yeah, I kind of think that threat was a little overblown, because I kind of doubt that myself.
Well, I don't know if it's tens of millions, but it's got to be a pretty big number when you think about I mean, I don't know if Isayama just... I don't know if this was intentional on his part or if he just doesn't understand scale in the same way that George Martin doesn't understand it. But, looking back, the walls are... The diameter of the walls is absolutely ridiculously huge. Like, in terms of just, like, the space within the walls. Like, an absolutely absurd... it's really, really big. So...
Not 10 million
fit within Madagascar.
Right, yeah, I mean...
Still, remember, people, when we were trying to figure out where on Earth the walls were located, people made, like, a program where you could just basically drag around the walls and see where we're matched up on the planet, and it encompassed basically all of Europe.
Sure, if I recall, it was, like, just a bit bigger than, like, the size of, like, Colorado and Wyoming combined, area-wise. So, like, you're talking about trying to fit something. I mean, anyway, it's massive. And if you think about regular people, our size, standing arm to arm, to make the circumference of that circle, that's millions of people.
The current day population.
And then you expand that, you got to multiply that by the size of the colossal titans, which are obviously a bit bigger. But even so, that's still a pretty ridiculous number of titans stuck in those walls.
The population of Madagascar in 2013 was only 23 million people.
Yeah, well, to be fair, they don't have a super dense population density.
I mean, just think about...
But I just found the that wall dragger thing. It's so big that if you put the walls at the southern tip of Italy, they don't even make it out.
Although one thing I should mention, Zach, although that thing is pretty close, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it takes account for latitude distortion with regards to the map projection, because it still does paste it on top of a Mercator projection, if I remember right. And it should distort the walls accordingly when you increase and decrease latitude, but I don't think it does. So it may not be 100% reflective of how much space it takes up.
I put it over Madagascar, basically, and the widest point of Madagascar is barely larger than Walsina, let alone Maria and Rose. So
Madagascar is pretty big as far as islands go, but even so, it's not that big. You know what I mean?
It's not going to be a real world thing. If I had to guess, it's probably just like a planet twice the size of ours. Everything is scaled up by 2.
It is funny because they did mention in, I think it was 88, about how the surface of the Earth is 70%. The surface of the planet is 70% water. So if it's not Earth, it must be like an analog, very, very close. Because obviously that was designed to be like similar to Earth.
I want to go to the first page we see of Grisha being tortured, where they're cutting off his fingers. Is there some kind of stereotype about German people having big noses or like weird noses?
No, that's the Jews.
The Jews.
Why?
I believe it's a Jewish stereotype. Obviously, not a very pleasant one. But
well, the reason I brought it up because if you look at that first panel of Grisha being tortured, you notice that Grisha has like the standard pointed-looking nose that's typically drawn in manga, but if you look at the two guys who are torturing them, they have like these. The guy on the right,
one has a Squidward nose, and the other has a pig.
The guy on the right looks like fucking Bert.
Don't talk shit about Squidward.
The guy on the right looks like Bert from Bart and Ernie. And
it's true.
That's funny.
He looks like a fucking tiki totem.
Yeah, I find that I just found that kind of strange. I wonder if that has any kind of. I wondered if that had any kind of tie into that.
He looks like something you'd find on Easter Island.
Maybe.
Do you think nude Grisha is going to make it into the anime?
I would have to say that it's going to be shaded out. The real question is still not, are we going to get Grisha's dick? It's, are we going to get Zackley?
Zackley's poop machine?
Zackley's everything.
Exactly.
Just the character Zackley is going to be pixelated out.
It was really only the poop machine that was kind of pushing the boundaries, because I think everything beyond that was like, not that risque.
There was also the torture scene with Hanji and Sanos.
I mean, they showed Levi beating the shit out of Eren in the first series, so I'm sure they're not going to shy away from the torture too much.
Still, there's kicking the shit out of someone, and then there's ripping off their fingernails and threatening to pull their teeth.
I'm sure they won't explicitly show the fingernails coming off.
How about in this panel where the fucking Grisha's losing his fingers entirely?
I know, isn't it funny?
Look at that panel on the bottom left corner of the
Wild
page.
nude.
Yeah, no shit.
It only paints pictures.
What would you call that tool he's using to remove his fingers? Like, what tool?
Shears. Those are literally garden shears.
Yeah, okay.
Those look like they were made for, pretty much, cutting through little stems and branches.
Cutting through fingers and bone entirely.
Yep.
There we go.
I was thinking that couldn't have been a quick cut. You know what I mean? You would think that would take a couple of snips before that would come off.
No, you should be able to do it in one go. It would just you got to use a lot of force.
Pretty much bite fingers off in one go, let alone snip them.
Yeah. You have experience with that, Zach?
I was about to say. Yes. You guys were pretty quick to answer that.
I'm glad I asked because I have experts here that can answer that for me.
You're welcome.
Yes, we all have experience of ripping people's fingers off. It's quite nice.
Hey, all I'm going to say is that long pig is delicious.
Long pig.
Oh my god.
Good
Scotty
Lord.
gets.
I get it. Don't worry.
I kind of have a question about an overall theme here, or I guess just situation, which is when they kick the people over into
Paradise
Island or whatever, into Utopia is what they call it. So they're creating Titans on that land. So I'm confused whether or not did Fritz bring those Titans not just for the wall but are surrounding it in order to keep the Marleys out so that they wouldn't try and attack, or are the Marleys bringing those Titans in so that the Fritzes don't leave?
That I think
I think it's actually both.
Yeah, there was probably an initial island seed of just Titans spread around, and then after that it's just the Marley throwing more in. All the Titans that were created in this chapter were actually the Titans that attacked Trost.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you see that, Scotty? I don't know if you caught that or not.
When they first built the walls, the guys who were trying to hide away, I didn't get the impression that they left a bunch of mindless Titans outside, because that didn't seem to fit with what they were trying to do. Unless you're right, unless they were just trying to protect themselves from outside interference, using that as another barrier, kind of like a proverbial fourth wall. The mindless Titans. But yeah, I guess the implication was that ever since the walls were built, the Marley had been doing this by bringing political dissidents over and just push and turn them into Titans and letting them roam.
They probably left a few Titans outside the wall just so that the garrison and people on the walls would see them and know, let's not go outside there.
Oh, right, because they mind wiped everybody, yeah.
Right. How in the first episode / chapter, Hannes talks about how you can see the Titans wandering around below.
Gosh, that makes him even more fucked up then, because the king obviously did this with the knowledge that there were his people out there, mindless Titans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With no desire to help them or anything, or no.
Well,
desire.
I mean, he
the whole thing is
10 billion of them into walls, anyways.
Yeah, that's true. He didn't seem to have He didn't seem to care for them too much.
I don't remember which chapter it was, but in one of the chapters, someone from the Mar said that they turned people into Titans and let them loose on the island as kind of a punishment to the Eldians, as forcing them to kill their own people, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it actually says...
Which is exactly why Grisha was so shocked when Shaddix first found him of, what the hell are you doing? Are you trying to kill the Titans?
Right. I said that to try to help answer Scotty's question about why,
It just seemed counterproductive because, I mean, I don't know. I guess it would depend on whether or not they knew about the resources, which I suppose they didn't before they fabricated that Fritz was going to lead a counterattack. So they were just throwing them in just to fuck with them. But then it kind of backfired.
I would imagine mindless Titans aren't much of a threat to the Mare military at this point, so they don't really have qualms with just throwing them in. Because every Elodian that a Titan eats is one less for the Mare to have to deal with.
Correct. Well, and also the fact that they have the ocean separating them, and the Titans, as far as we know, have no way to cross the ocean.
Yeah, so then...
isolating, yeah.
That can be argued with, though, because he did say that they have orders to keep them away from the ocean wall.
Implying that they might swim across.
Or something,
I thought the implication was that they would probably just fuck with the Marlians that are trying to dump their friends off. But
do we have any kind of scale for how big the fourth wall is here?
30 meters plus the sand dunes.
See, so 30 meters. I mean, the Colossal Titan could fucking step over that, right?
Sure.
So I guess there's kind of a threat of Titans getting out, but unless they're doing...
Aaron could get over that if he jumped and grabbed the top.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of wondering about the scale there and how much of a threat that actually is.
Yeah, page 14, Kruger says there's a sand dune underneath. He'll survive even if it's a 30-meter drop, which basically says it's 30 meters or less.
But I don't know, it just brings into my mind the question of, so how did the people, I guess the people of Marley or whatever, they weren't under any authority to question the government. But when the government said, "Hey, Fritz is gonna lead a counterattack to retake our land," did they not consider like, well, what would he do that with? Would he do that with Titans? If so, how would they get to this land through the ocean? So I don't know.
If you had 100-meter Titans, they'd be able to get through the ocean.
No.
I don't. Yeah.
No way.
They're just that big.
They're not that big. The ocean's too deep.
The ocean's pretty deep.
Yeah, way deeper than 100 meters. But I mean, we've never seen Titans interact with water, have we? So do we even know what that would look like?
No, the closest we've seen is the river when they attacked Shiganshina at the very beginning of the series. As far as I mean, to be fair, it wasn't. We only saw the mindless Titans that made it into the city, and we only saw the 3 shifters. But there was the water, the canal that people were escaping with via the boats to get through the wall. I don't know if that's conclusive.
There were no Titans that actually interacted with that water. The only interaction with water we've seen is in this chapter with Kruger.
Correct.
So I guess
he seems to have no problem with it. Although, this is something worth pointing out. I think it's interesting because we already know how Titans have this propensity to generate undue amounts of heat and steam when they need to. They're obviously, it's shown that and even when the limb falls off, it steams up and evaporates. The idea is that they're just running very, very hot all the time. I don't know if this has really any impact at all, but it would be interesting to note the effect that being in the water would have, considering how much it would cool them down. You got to think if Big Bird was in there or any kind of colossal Titan was in there.
Yeah, I'd probably suck them out like a candle.
Oh yeah, or maybe you're right. I didn't think of that. I was thinking just like it would make a lot of steam, which would be cool, but maybe it would actually hurt them, like you're saying.
But yeah,
obviously it seems like Kruger didn't have a problem.
To go back to Scotty's question, well, first, Ryan, that wasn't too deep water, but to go back to Scotty's question about the...
Well, no, he's in a fucking bay, dude.
It's knee deep for him. Anyways,
just like the rest of the ocean.
Shut up. The Marley wouldn't necessarily question their government since they hate the Elodians so much. It's like, well, the German people in World War II wouldn't really question something Hitler said about the Jews. And to go to a more relevant parallel, if Donald Trump says something bad about Mexicans, his supporters don't really question him on that either.
No, but I mean, I don't know if that's a.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But you
were definitely stretching to make a Donald Trump analogy any way you possibly could.
Actually, no, I was trying not to.
I could see you were holding.
I was thinking, and then I thought, oh fuck, the most relevant thing to this is Trump. I don't really want to go there.
But it's not because Trump's not.
I think was right. I really don't want to go there.
But yeah, I'll just leave that there. But and it also could be the fact that perhaps they don't know the Marleys. They don't know how advanced. They don't know that Fritz and the Rices were purposefully stifling innovation. So they might thought that they were like a formidable force that could potentially rival their technology. So I guess it makes sense that, they'd fear them regardless.
Fuck yourself, Stiller. You know what, Stiller? They could stack 800 Titans on top of each other.
I'll pull a
that I would want to see. That I would like.
I'll pull a Zach here and explain and humiliate him on the podcast about his incorrectness, which is it's over 8,000 meters deep, the Indian Ocean. Therefore, a 100-meter Titan probably could not stand.
I'll throw Zach a bone here. The ocean we're talking about here.
I'll throw Zach a bone here and say if he was to walk off the coast of Florida into the Gulf of Mexico, the Titan would be able to walk out for several hundred miles because they're on a shelf there, which is relatively shallow water. So it really does depend on kind of where you are in the ocean and how deep it actually is. Now, if we are talking about the Indian Ocean, there's not a chance. But
depth of ocean between Madagascar and Africa. Let's see.
It's still way deeper than 100 meters. Don't even.
Mozambique Channel is fuck.
Yeah, say it out loud, Zach.
Yep.
Even it's 3,292 meters.
Mm-hmm.
If you round down by a couple thousand, that could be 100.
It's a little less than half.
Yeah,
It's closer.
You just don't know anything about the ocean.
Dug your own grave there, man.
You know what?
That one's on you.
You know what?
Funny. Consider it a lesson learned.
Shut up.
I think that's the right response.
There you go. Glad we settled that. That was worth the investment.
Yep.
Breaking in all that salt.
Good payoff.
That's right. All right, so yeah, we getting into that conversation. We've advanced in the detail for this chapter a little bit. Now we're on top of the wall after the boat ride over. And the next real big detail I think that's important is the gang being lined up on their knees, getting ready to be kicked off over the wall into the sand below. And his former buddy, his revolutionary compadre, turns to him and is like, Why did you raise your son so shittily? Why are you such a terrible parent? How could you do this?
He's basically like nailing all the blame on Grisha for being a shitty parent.
He's also channeling the audience for people who realized how shitty fathers are in this series.
You're right.
Because he's just laying into Grisha all these things about how he fucked up the resistance movement, he fucked up his own son, he fucked up their plans, he's gonna get his wife killed, fucking royal blood's gonna be gone now, he ruined everything. Why did we even trust this mission to Grisha in the first place? Who is Grisha?
Well, the way I interpreted it was a panicked man looking at death's doorstep, basically, doing as panicked people do and just having a bit of a freak out. Really, it wasn't only Grisha's idea. They collectively came together and said, this is what we're going to do and this is our plan. So the blame doesn't solely rest on him, although I can understand that in kind of the heat of the moment with emotions running high and the fact that you think you're going to be either A, turned into a Titan, or in his case, eaten by a Titan. Yeah, I'd be freaking out a little bit too. And so I can understand the emotional outburst, even if the blame was not entirely placed correctly.
I like to think now that Grisha having heard that now has something in common with Reiner.
Speaking of which, doesn't that guy look a lot like Reiner? I mean, maybe it's just coincidence, but
I heard people say he looks like Annie's dad.
Oh, maybe I'm sure he's not, because we never see him get eaten. No, I'm kidding. We don't see him get eaten, but the assumption is, yeah, he got gobbled up.
Yeah, after he was the first one to get kicked down, he was promptly chased by everyone else that was turned before they got kicked down too. Yeah. So
we didn't see it, but you can only assume he didn't last.
Good luck to that guy.
Yep.
Unless we're gonna get into
maybe he was the world's fastest man.
Yeah.
Usain Bolt.
Yeah, exactly.
With his hands tied behind his back too.
But like long distance. Yeah.
He ran backwards to get more speed.
There you go.
Yeah. That's how you do it. Did the
held his arms out to the side to get those aerodynamics.
He ran over to a tree and shuffled up it backwards.
Z and then left hop across Hyrule Field.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
Serpentine.
Yep.
After that bit, the next real big thing we do is we encounter this man. This I don't know what his rank is, but this asshole within the Mar troops that are doing this mission, or whatever you want to call it. Does he have a name? Is it Grice? Gross?
Sergeant Major Gross.
Sergeant Major Gross.
At least according to this translation. I assume it's different in the official one, but we couldn't find the official one.
Yeah, that guy.
There we go.
It's not Grease, because that's the one that was kicked over the wall to be bait.
Right, he was just on that page. That's why I was looking at it. See, I think he is the next big topic to talk about, because he had a lot of dialogue in this chapter. For somebody.
Are we talking the mustache guy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the one who killed
Hitler.
his sister when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he was great, and actually, I did want to talk about that because I thought the dialogue was pretty interesting. Because obviously, it seemed like Isayama was trying to drive that point home. The whole people are animals, you know what I mean? Like blood sport for entertainment. We're all you're all like this in human nature. But beyond that, and how interesting that commentary was, I thought it was very interesting, the idea that he was just saying, you guys aren't even human. I don't even feel guilt for this. And obviously it's highlighting the whole lack of morality and the whole
now, I like that he said that he talks about them like they're not human and they shouldn't consider themselves to be human, and then he turns around and he says, well, what were you guys planning to do with your little revolution? Were you gonna not be cruel towards us as well? What was your plan there?
My heart, how did your heart not hurt?
Yeah.
For the fact that you're trying to commit, and it's a very interesting question it brings up, because there's a common theme about the ends justifying the means and things like that, and it's interesting to talk about with bloody revolution, essentially, what actions are considered acceptable and unacceptable. A great example in the real world is obviously, you look back at the French Revolution, where there was horrible atrocities committed on all sides. It was it was an absolute mess. It was it was a horrible thing, and people came out of there not looking like good guys at the very end of it. But you look down the road to the future at the end of the day, and we can say, all in all, the revolution was probably for the best, looking at where the state of modern France is at. But it doesn't hide the fact that there were some horrible things done in the process, and it makes you wonder, are these people, I guess it's relative, are they considered, heroes or villains depending on who you look at it?
I think that may well be the best dialogue line of this chapter, because I'm really glad that Gross called Grisha out on his shit with that line.
Yeah, no, I think it was great, because then it brings us right back into that whole theme of the gray, where you're saying, right. Okay, well, you're talking about right and wrong, and who's justified in killing the others, and who's committed these atrocities, but it all comes down to a matter of perspective.
Yeah, because clearly that revolution they were planning wasn't going to be a peaceful one.
Oh no, yeah.
It's just a matter of a cycle, I mean, if they were to get on top and then oppress the Marleys, then it would be the same situation that all these face currently.
Which,
so,
it's just a never-ending happened cycle. At one point.
Yeah, right. Or the Marleys believe that that happened, whether it did or not. It seems like the Elodians are claiming, no, we never oppressed you, we were just building roads and bridges. And the Marley are saying, well, we were oppressed as fuck. Sure. And so I guess it brings back to the question we were talking about earlier about, is any of it even true? Who knows what's real and what's not?
I think it's probably safe to assume that at one point both sides were on top, and that this has been a continuous cycle that's been going on well past, a couple generations. So I don't know. It's hard to tell. I don't know if we'd ever actually get an official answer. I think ECM purposely planted that as like a seed of we'll never know. It'll just be we're in a current conflict where the root of it is undetermined. It probably won't ever be figured out.
Somebody in this chapter actually said the line, didn't they? They actually said history is written by the winner. Didn't somebody actually say that?
Something like that. Yeah.
It was one of the Mar soldiers that said it. But I remember somebody actually said that line about how history is actually only written by the winners, and that how that gets lost, how the actual truth gets lost. And that sort of plays into what Kruger ended up saying later on.
Sure. Well, and I think there's another interesting point that's brought up by this whole situation. And I don't know if Isayama was doing this intentionally, but I get the feeling that this is kind of what he's going to be going forward, is the idea that what happened in the past is in the past, and it actually is somewhat irrelevant bearing on what's going to happen in the future. Right. The idea of you make your own future, you make your own history, and the idea that like either we don't know what happened, we don't know what the real story was looking back, and maybe we will see it revealed later on. But the idea is that both sides think that these horrible atrocities are committed, and it may have been committed on both sides, so all parties are guilty. But the point is that now we looking forward. Okay, well we throw that all away and we say, well, what do these characters now do? With the time that they have, are they gonna kind of succumb to the same issues that their ancestors had problems with, or are they going to be able to rise above that and move forward, with this kind of sense of justice, as opposed to just falling into the same old feuds that their predecessors got trapped in. So I'd like to see if that theme is more explored on in the future as this kind of story continues to unravel.
That's a good one for sure. I agree with you. I'd like to see that come up again too, and I'm sure it probably will. Actually, seeing how in this chapter and I think the next chapter, I'm not sure how much of these 3 chapters actually came from the books and how much of it is actually Eren and Armin's dream coming back, or if any of it is Armin's dream and it's all Eren's dream. And
it sounded
where
like
the split is there.
Yeah, it sounded like from the impression I got that Eren was like dictating his dream and Armin was like trying to like write it down. But then he also had that book that he got from Grisha. So yeah, it's a good question because like how much of it is either way, they're both getting Grisha's information. So it seems like it should all be, from that bias and that perspective. Because we really don't have the other side of the story yet, which we may actually end up getting from Reiner at some point or Zeke down the road.
That's
since
why
the whole reveal is from Grisha's eyes, which are, admittedly biased, as we've learned this chapter.
That's why I corrected myself when I said Armin, too, because him having Bertholdt's memories might have a different version than what we're seeing now.
You know what? You're totally right. I didn't even think of that. I wonder, does he need to do the same thing like what happened with Eren, where he had to, like, touch her to get his memories activated?
You mean Historia?
Yeah, remember that Eren didn't really get the memories until he touched her, and then it all came flooding back. I wonder if that's like kind of the same deal with Armin, or if he already has access to it. But that's a huge point because I completely forgotten that he has access to that now.
So who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, there's the whole thing's gonna be split open. But again,
then we're possibilities.
Bert's perspective and his biases, so it'll be cool to see it from the different sides and see how much matches up and how much is different.
Yeah, because Bert's story is going to be a hell of a lot different than Grisha's story.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I'm interested to see if we're going to see that though, because I'd actually really, really enjoy seeing a Bert flashback. Like a shifter flashback? That'd be amazing.
I wonder if Bert secretly held a grudge against Eren for being Grisha's son because Zeke was the one who trained him and already had a disposition against Grisha for what he did in the first place.
That would add a new element to when Bert Holt said that he felt sorry for Eren during the tree part in chapter 40
no, exactly, because he would already know with that knowledge, assuming that Zeke told him what happened with Grisha, who was Eren's father.
And the Reiner and Bert Holt together kind of ignored or kind of looked down on Eren for not remembering things and how he wasn't sort of caught up to speed like the rest of them were, like him and...
Yeah. Well, they're probably
Reiner
frustrated. So, like, do you not know what your dad did? And he's like, no, of course I don't know.
So they were totally able to leave him in the dust as far as their conversations went.
They were already pissed off at him before they even met him because of what they knew. Potentially, we don't know what Zeke told them, but it sounds like obviously they had already had prior interactions with Zeke.
You know, I hadn't actually put it together yet, but this actually, this history bit really it sheds light on Ymir a lot too, explaining why she was always sort of the wild card and how she was always off by herself, kind of doing her own thing, as opposed to the shifters who were all grouped together. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because Ymir was, God, it's amazing how that played out. Because Ymir was always hanging out with Historia. And see it. That was the...
Well, they must. So, unfortunately, I hate to admit it, but this means RBA must have been pretty fucking dumb when you think about it, because not only did they see their buddy Marcel get chomped up by her, and obviously they didn't see it was her because she must not have transformed until after they ran away and left, but she managed to do that and then infiltrate into the walls just like they did without being noticed and integrate into the military with nobody noticing, and they didn't even figure it out as well.
I hate to say it, but I have to agree with you.
Yeah.
Because I've always said that Annie's plan for the expedition during the anime was super fucking dumb for her to go out and do that by herself.
Yeah.
And we shit on this podcast. We shit on Reiner constantly for how often he's fucking up.
You shit on Reiner.
I shit on Reiner all the time because he fucking
he's okay.
deserves it. That guy, that fucking shitheel. God, fuck that guy.
Damn, son. All right.
What happens when you leave a bunch of kids to make fucking plans like this?
I hate that guy. Just for the record.
I know we could tell.
Bert Holt's the only one I haven't called dumb yet because I can't. I'm not remembering a reason to. But I'm sure he did something stupid too.
Well, remind me. Maybe it was just it didn't. Remember that original flashback when they showed when Ymir ate Marcel and there was like Bert and Reiner were there.
Yeah.
I don't recall seeing Annie there as well. And I don't remember if that was that an oversight or was that intentional that she was not there?
Definitely intentional. Just don't know why.
For sure. Yet to be revealed.
Because she wasn't there. I mean, if you look at it, she wasn't.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know why. You know. At the time, looking back at previous podcasts, we had actually talked about that scene before and went, well, maybe that's because she's from some other different group, or maybe she's, yada yada. I think the actual reasoning might have been that, you remember, Annie had done infiltration to learn more about Historia, right? She had infiltrated the wall cult, and she had infiltrated some of the interior wall groups. I kind of wonder if she was doing that at the time. Or if she was doing some kind of espionage, you know what I mean?
The idea was that she was already within the walls when that happened?
Or she was off infiltrating something somewhere because she was shown to have infiltrating skills.
She's pretty young already.
Better than the other two,
May have had the training, but either way, we know, or we can assume that she was with Bert and Reiner when they broke the walls down initially because she called the Titans there.
Right.
Right?
And we never saw
that. But other
either.
than that, we don't know if she was already within the walls at that point, or if she had joined them later at a different time, if she was a replacement for Marcel, or if she was just already on the way separately.
So that kind of raises the question of Annie's importance to the future of the story.
That's so funny that we circle back and we're
because
we couldn't escape it.
Because I mean, obviously we've talked about it for years as a possible thing that could happen, but now with these new details, is there even a need for that anymore? I don't know if we need her to come back for anything.
She still has a very strong Elodian link, just like Reiner and Bert did, because obviously they had to be Elodians in order to get the Titan powers in the first place.
Reiner's dead, or not Reiner, Bert Holt's dead, and
then we have
Reiner will never die.
Reiner will never die, thank you. But we have the thing with Annie's father, and obviously she's kind of in a different boat from the other two, and it brings up the question about what are her true motives. It sounds like they're not necessarily completely aligned with what Reiner and Bert's are, especially going back to that conversation with Marco, where they had to kind of like go to her and like prove yourself to us kind of thing.
I kind of get the sense that she's looking for purpose now, because she's an outcast everywhere she goes and everyone hates her. and her mission isn't one that she really agrees with. She never has. She thought her dad was an ideological fool. She doesn't. So it's kind of unclear if she ever really had a clear goal or a clear purpose.
Well, it's clear that she has an important part to play still in the plot, because otherwise he would not be keeping her alive in this kind of literal plot suspension.
She had always talked about how she had a mission that she, had committed herself to, and she felt like she needed to complete. But I don't really think, knowing what we know now, that was really what her heart was intent on.
Do you think she knows the owl? Do you think the owl's still alive? No, the owl's dead, because obviously...
No, the owl's... Yeah.
The owl's dead because Grisha ate him. I take that back. So none of RBA don't know the owl at all.
Right.
But I was going to
After Chapter 88, I would just assume that the owl's gone. We're not going to see him again.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, he has to be dead for Grisha to inherit the power.
Right.
But the thing is, do you think there's a possibility Annie is or was at the point under the... Not under the rule of the owl, but, she could honestly be for the people in the wall.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Because we were talking about Zeke being, potentially double, triple agent. What if he's the one? Well, what if it's her? What if she's the one who... That was the whole thing with her dad. We talked about this last week as well when we did this.
Yeah.
We're saying...
Scott, you weren't here for that, but we did have a big discussion about if Annie was, a double agent or stuff. And I think the conclusion was it's up in the air for her, but Bert and Reiner are definitely... Definitely... against the Elodians, yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, I'd agree with that. And also, now that I think about it, the nonchalant manner in which Annie went about dismantling some of the Survey Corps in military police, it kind of seems as though she had a disdain or a lack of care for them. So if she was a double agent, I mean, I guess that wouldn't really work in her favor, because she wasn't even around Reiner and Bertholdt in a lot of those. It comes to mind when she was yo-yoing around the one soldier. It's like, if you really cared about those people or were trying to help them, when you weren't watched by people, who you were trying to tell, I am on your side, see, I'm killing these peasants, even when she's not with them, then she wouldn't act in that manner, right?
Well,
so the fact that she did...
Reiner was in the Survey Corps, so he would have seen and heard about that. But she could always just be like the Vampire of Britannia and just enjoy killing people.
Well, right. Also, I think, she's shown signs, as we've seen at this point, that she was just so emotionally detached at that point. And we've always talked about the mental issues with these kids, and you look at Reiner, who that is obviously very explicit as a problem.
Right.
The toll that takes on the rest of the kids as well, having to that role. We don't have actual impacts yet.
Obviously, I agree with Ryan, but I want to go back to talking about how the other people in the 104th sort of reacted to Annie. She had a reputation as a lone wolf and as a introvert, sort of, and how she didn't want to associate with anybody. And we always talked about how that was because she wanted to maintain her cover really well.
I thought it was like a defense mechanism.
But I also think
don't let people get too close to you.
I also think that's true, that it's a defense mechanism, and I also think that plays into the whole emotional distress and the idea that she really doesn't know what she wants to do with herself. If she really wants to commit to the mission that she was given by whoever, and that the idea that Scotty's talking about how she went out and she killed Survey Corps members. I think Scotty, you're a level 2. You're not deep enough on that level. You know what I mean? If you go down to the next level where you think about how the different sides that she's playing and the covers that she has to keep up, and the thoughts she's having about whether she gives a fuck about any of this anymore or not, about the stuff that we learned in Chapter 88 about how she doesn't have that much longer to live, and all this shit's going on. Even though she's a kid, I can't imagine most adults being able to handle a situation like that.
Right.
What do you even do if you're in that situation?
But it's a curious situation, because I understand what you're saying about going deep with thinking about the inner thoughts and how that would mess up someone's mind, right? Going undercover as a child.
Not that she's like Reiner. It's just like she's emotional.
No, I understand what you're saying. But at the same time, we have to take into consideration a story where Isayama has a particular motive in mind for everything he writes, and I'm not sure we've seen enough information to confirm that he's thinking super, super deeply about all of these themes. He's thinking deep to some extent, but I don't know if he's really, if he wanted to make Annie out to be a double a double traitor or whatever, like someone who's actually working for the people within the walls or has a mission to actually work for the people within the walls, I don't think that he would write her as just being nonchalant with handling the Survey Corps members.
Well,
like I understand
it's tough because you have to serve that base level of like where the anime viewer is, where they see her doing these things and they think she's evil because it's a terrible thing she's doing. And at the second level, it's, hey, I have to do this for Reiner and Bertholdt because I need them to trust me and I need them to see that I'm willing to carry out this mission.
Right.
Yada, yada.
Right.
And at the third level, she's like, yeah, I have to do this because I need to complete my own mission. And if I don't do this, I'm going to feel bad about myself and I'm going to feel bad about my dad and all this shit. It's
right, but still, at every one of those levels, there's no need to go overboard. I mean, number one, Reiner and Bertholdt and all of them weren't around when she was doing those nonchalant killings of the Survey Corps.
They would have known about it still.
What? Like, where would have gotten back? Like, oh, she really messed us up good. Like,
Yeah.
I think Scotty's got a pretty good point, but I don't think it necessarily discounts the entire idea that of what Stiller's saying, because then it does get back to the point where we're talking about just how fucked up in the head is she. Because I don't think it necessarily is mutually exclusive, the two ideas. I think Scotty's definitely right in the sense that it is fairly unnecessary, and if you're trying to maintain, it's complicated is what it comes down to. So I don't think one idea necessarily precludes the other. But I mean, you're both making pretty good points and arguments for why motivations one side and the other.
And so, like, I understand your point, and I would agree with it on a pure like. If these were actual people, what you're saying would make sense. Obviously, she'd be messed up enough to the fact that she could be on the human side and at the same time still commit these atrocious acts in this nonchalant manner because she would be fucked up in the head and therefore maybe do fucked up things. But at the same point, this is Isayama writing characters, so I don't know, like, you're going deep as if this is a real person. And he's not a real person, so to go to that level, it doesn't make sense, really, in terms of, like, the story.
I mean, I like to think he writes all of these characters as if they're having real thoughts and real emotions. Like, we've seen Reiner do it, we've seen Bertholdt do it, we've seen Eren do it, we've seen John do it, we've seen Armin do it. Why not Annie?
Not to 3 levels deep, I don't think.
Oh,
I think
the only reason I say that about Annie is because Annie's the only one I really focus that much in on.
Right, you focus in on her, but I don't think Isayama focuses any much more in on her than anyone else.
I bet you did.
Well, I think that might be a little bias showing, but
probably. Well, while we're on the topic, I did think there's something I would like to point out, and a disclaimer: I'm not sure there's a time or place for this because this dips into chapter 88 in order to talk about it. Is that okay?
I mean, I've done it now. Me and Scotty have both done it at this point. So I think it's fine.
In chapter 88, it's revealed that the people that get the Titan shooting powers have a limited time span. What didn't he say, like 13 years or something like that?
Yeah, I had just mentioned that Annie, that was something that might have been playing on her, was the fact that she didn't have that much time to live.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if they knew that, and they knew that they were, and that goes back to the whole thing with her dad saying, I'm sorry I had to do this to you, knowing that it was going to kill her, because the only options are that you either die or you die giving it to the power to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's a death sentence either way in those years, which probably dates back to why she's so pissed and why her father was upset at what he had to, and what, the whole thing with having to forgive him for doing that probably played into it too, because he knew what kind of sacrifice he was making. I'm assuming, unless they just lied and didn't tell them about that stuff, but I'm assuming they would have to know, because since it's such a valuable and limited resource, the shifters themselves. So you're saying don't lose this because you only have 13 years. You need to get back here so we can give it to somebody else when you're done, because otherwise we're going to lose that forever. If you die,
you lose it, but it'll end up with some baby.
Oh, you're right.
Really
I forgot that bullshit. Yeah, you're right.
I want to save that for the next episode, for the next podcast, because that's a can of worms in itself.
That is a different can of worms, and now I'm. Yeah.
I didn't even see what it was or hear what it was.
We'll get to that. But,
we'll get to it later, but I don't know how I feel about it yet, but my initial impression was it's fucking stupid, but that doesn't mean it is.
The follow-up question to what we were just talking about with Annie is about the crystal and what importance that has now. Because, what is that even? Because we still don't know anything about that, even after this huge info dump.
Well, you want to...
We don't know to what extent the Ymira's curse exists. Because it doesn't really add up with the timeline. Grisha was in the walls for 20, 25 years.
I don't think it was in that long.
Well, given the timelines that people have put together previously, still, Isayama has shown himself not 100% accurate on his own timelines. He's had his times. He's forgotten about time skips in the past. So I don't know. I'm sure Ymir's curse will be. They'll elaborate on it. It might just be like only some people are applicable, etc. Who knows?
Well, you bring up a good point because we don't know if, say, like the crystallization, like Silver kind of mentioned, delays that. If it still counts those as years, if it has any impact.
Well, there are people on the subreddit wanting to know if it gets impacted by eating another shifter.
Like if it adds time or something?
I'm guessing.
If it adds or removes, yeah.
Yeah, based on what you're saying now, I'm kind of guessing that I think the timeline does match up in the sense that I think this explains why Grisha was so in a hurry with giving Eren the power, because he knew he was like at the very end of his time. Because if it looks at now, if he got his power from the owl when he first got to the walls, and then Eren was how old when he gave his powers? Like 12 when he got his powers from Grisha. So assuming that Grisha was there for like a year or two.
Grisha met Carla super fast.
Super early, and had not that. So it sounds like it matches up to where he was on the very end of that time frame and about to die when he realized he had. That's probably why he waited so long to give it to Eren, because he had to wait until it was like the latest possible spot, till Eren was old enough. And I'm guessing the whole issue with the actual walls coming down from RBA, accelerated that. But
sure.
But it sounds like that would be an explanation for why he was in such a goddamn hurry in the first place.
I kind of want the side story about how Grisha met Carla and how that played out. I want to How You Met Your Mother with those two, considering all this shit going on in the background.
Well, it seemed pretty normal at the time, because from Carla's perspective, because he was the new guy in town. He was a doctor, he was swag.
Sexy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he won over her heart, and one thing led to another. So it can happen pretty quickly.
But is there a moral dilemma to marrying someone knowing that you have like a year left to live, or not even that, like a couple of months left a year? You got to find a woman and have a child with her, like on a strict timeline.
Yeah.
Well, what do you?
Like, knowing that these things are going to happen.
Hurry, gotta go to knock her up quickly.
He's got 13 years though, so it's not like he had a year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is that, but
maybe he wasn't even planning on having kids.
The timeline of Grisha being alive and having a kid that was old enough to be able to transfer the shit to. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's an interesting point you make, because it's a philosophical argument in real life in general. You think about is somebody who has like a terminal illness and marrying somebody else and putting them through that. Obviously that's a theme that comes up in modern media a lot in different, books and films and stories, just because it's a very compelling emotional, concept. But yeah, it's interesting because it's always, is it always fair to the spouse that you kind of bring them into this and then die so shortly after? And
right.
Obviously there's a lot of facets to that argument, and that discussion in general. And, you start getting some, interesting aspects of kind of love and relationships and things like that.
Carla didn't deserve that, right?
She didn't know. Well, that's the difference, is that he didn't. There's no way he told her that. No, maybe she did know, and she was just, keeping it all in a wrap.
She was cool with it.
Right? You never know. Maybe she was.
I kind of doubt that.
She didn't go. Well, think about it this way. Do you think she never went in the basement, or do you think that was off limits from her too?
That's a good question.
Do you think she knew? Do you think Grisha told her that he had a former life with a former wife and a former child?
Mikasa never wondered what was down there?
Well, she's not the brightest candle in the
she was
whatever.
Brighter than Eren.
Well, true enough.
Doesn't say much though.
That's a massive compliment coming from you, Stiller.
I guess it is.
It's not stupid.
I didn't mean for that to be a compliment. Can I take that back?
No. I think if anything, it speaks to Grisha. Like, he got over his past wife. He's like, yeah, she's dead now. A couple months later, I have a new wife.
You know what? That's a good point. We haven't
turnover.
We haven't even talked about Dina yet, and how Grisha just fucking moved on in the blink of an eye. Fucking.
Well, that's the other thing. Maybe he felt that after getting the power, that it was he was on like a mission. Like, his purpose had changed, and now it was like he was trying to put his own emotions aside and realize that for, kind of like the greater good.
Primary directive. Number 1, find wife.
Find wife.
Number 2, bang wife.
Right.
Number 3, indoctrinate child. Number 4, turn child into inhuman monster.
But it is funny from Grisha's perspective because we see in this chapter how he's so remorseful and so like frustrated about how shitty of a father he was with Zeke, and how he's like, I don't want to repeat those mistakes, and how awful he was to kind of have this child for the purpose of forcing them into this role. And then you look at Eren and you wonder, did he change? Is it the same, or is Eren born with this purpose of eventually inheriting this power?
Clearly,
was he always thinking about that? Is Grisha no better than he used to be, or is he just as much of a kind of let's put it this way, a selfish guy as he was in the beginning to use his children for that purpose?
Well, Eren would have known more about the plot by now if Grisha had done the same thing that he did to Zeke. So clearly he held off a bit.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. He remember the whole. He made a big point about it. Like, I'll show you the basement when you're ready, when you're old enough. He's probably thinking. Again, it doesn't completely rule out the fact that he may have had the intention of always doing this to Eren from the start. But at least he was trying to be a little more responsible.
You'd like to think he learned his lesson.
Whether that makes him better or not, I don't know. But it is at least it shows some evolution in character.
And then who are we to judge?
Well, readers, but
the ones who pay him.
Yeah, everybody's a critic, except we don't pay him at all.
Do the ends justify the means? I suppose it goes back to that.
Yeah.
I have a question kind of about the semantics regarding the 13-year time span, because, all right, so do you
want to save that?
Oh,
is it 13 years?
Yeah, it's 13 years.
Yeah. I mean,
13 years.
we've talked about
right. Yeah.
We've talked about multiple plot points of 88.
We should save some stuff, though.
Should we just combine it at this point?
No, because we said we weren't going
I'm distracted enough as is.
We said we weren't going to, so I don't think we should.
I think it's okay to mention 88 because we can go over it in more detail later, as long as it's relevant to 87 to some degree.
I guess it's fine. Okay.
And this is.
I don't want to go through the whole thing, but.
Yeah, this is just like a semantics thing, so it's not going to be like super long. I hope not. But so 13 years. Do you think that includes when you're in the Titan form? Because if not, then that might be a reason why Zeke's primarily in his Titan form, because he realizes, hey, I don't want to waste these 13 years of human form.
Oh, man.
So what I'm going to do is
how long has Zeke been in the Titan? Because we know when he was a kid and he turned his parents in, we turned Grisha in, we don't know if he was already a Titan at that point. Probably not, because he was a kid. But we don't know how long he's been in, and he's probably been in for a lot longer than 13 years by the looks of it. We have the example of Ymir being in the Mindless Titan for 60 years and not really growing or aging at that point. So I think that's a good point, because I think it does. I think it's actually more than semantics. I think it's actually a question about the actual physical process and function of it. Does that prevent? Yeah. Does it kind of count towards that timeline? Or obviously the other thing to bring up is that Zeke his Titan is so different from the rest of them. Is he subject to the same restrictions as far as time?
Well, to counter that, Ryan, first off, Ymir was a mindless Titan for 60 years. It's the
True.
It's Ymir's curse that kills the shifters only after 13. Since we now know that the Titan forms are definitely passed down and that they have names, I would wager that the bestial Titan, it's just that. That's how it's always been. It's just always a monkey.
Sure.
It's not Zeke specific.
So it's not like unique where it would have different rules besides the 13.
Right. It should just be one of the 9. It's not like he ate a monkey. He fucked a monkey and then turned into a Titan.
Unless. Unless the 13 years is not actually true and it's just a scare tactic or basically a kind of a failsafe built in through the Marleyan propaganda.
Could be,
say that it only lasts 13 years and you better do it because otherwise you're going to die. Now I doubt that's the case, but
was the implication at the end of, and this is gonna get into 88, but when the owl was like falling down, wasn't the implication there that he was literally weak because his time was nearing 13 years?
Yeah, and that's why he kept getting like the huge nosebleeds and everything.
So then that would implicate, or that would lead to the assumption that 13 years is legitimate, right?
Sure, yeah. I guess the question remains, why hasn't Zeke? Because the thing is, between when Grisha got the power and when Grisha gave the power to Eren, I guess I'm under the assumption that Zeke had already had the Titan power. Now that may not be true. He would have had to have gotten it after Grisha got his power in order for him to still have it now and be okay. Unless, like you said, that there is some other funky thing going on where he doesn't, it doesn't affect him. I don't know. There's a lot of questions left to answer about that because, I think there's a lot. There's a lot of unknowns still in that side of things.
I have another question about. So I don't know if this is obvious or not, but Ymir in our story isn't the same Ymir, right? This is
right.
Who knows?
No,
Okay.
I think it's just the namesake.
It's
but
definitely not the
Zach said,
same.
we don't really know.
Because at the beginning
Right.
of chapter 86, they talked about how the spirit transcends between person, right?
Sure.
The person
right.
who actually is holding that spirit of Ymir at the time eventually dies and it goes to someone else.
However,
So then-
she is probably related to the figurehead, the old King Fritz, right? Because she got the same last name. Because she's obviously some kind of Elodian, and she's probably related to that. You know, they're always talking about how Elodians, you know, the big deal is that there's all these different, like, branches of families. You know, you have, like, the quote-unquote, the Asians, like Mikasa, the Ackermans. You had the people that couldn't be mind-wiped within the Elodian sphere. You know, isn't her last name Fritz? Isn't that what we've already established?
Ymir Fritz?
Well,
Yeah,
the
the new
name of the
Ymir.
first Titan was Ymir. The name of the person who made the deal with the devil was Ymir Fritz. We don't know if our Ymir has that last name.
Oh, so we still don't know her last name at all.
To just butt in real quick and say that an Elodian naming their baby Ymir is like asking yourself to be shot.
Exactly, yeah. That's what
Unless she
I don't
came
think-
from inside the wall?
Possible.
Wouldn't make sense though, but I wouldn't think anyone would even risk naming their kid Ymir.
Yeah,
it's
anyone
like
from
name.
Wall-
For the Elodians, the Ymir was somebody who they looked up to, remember?
But my point is,
Yeah.
the mayor in control there would take massive offense to that, and they would probably kill the entire family.
Well, maybe that explains. Okay, let me. You know, something I just thought of now. I bet the reason that she was a mindless Titan wandering around outside the walls in the first place is because she was an Elodian who got captured on Marley and did the same thing that happened to Grisha and his friends, where they brought her to the wall, injected her with a Titan serum, and pushed her off. We don't know how she got to that point, but I've got a feeling that that's how she got there and turned into a Titan.
Well, yeah,
I think so, yeah.
That's been pretty much implied. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, the signs are all
yeah.
there, but they haven't explicitly like really pointed to that yet because she hasn't come up in the story yet.
Right.
So I think it will come up once she's back in the story. But
What's in
the
that
signs are there.
letter?
Right, exactly. It goes back to that.
Also, someone had
also-
just mentioned the Ackermans. Why is there a family that's immune to the mind wipe shit? Why
Fuck,
is
who
that a
knows?
thing?
Fucking knows.
They were probably already on the island.
And we're not going to talk about it, but you know, it goes back to that bullshit in '88 with the whole like telepathic fucking Titan shifter power.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's.
it's-
I can't wait.
Let's not
for
go into that. Let's not go into that. But
I hate that.
I didn't like it upper class either.
I put
We'll
that in
see
the same
where they go with it, but-
the same categorization of like the bullshit crystals that have unlimited power. It's
the
like don't.
bullshit crystals.
It's like why? Just why
So,
are you introducing a
Chapter 88 's gonna be
spiritual
fun.
element?
So anyway, Zach, you were saying we still don't know Ymir's official last name, right?
Right, we don't.
Okay, so obviously Easttown's been very careful not to reveal that because it would blow parts of the plot if we did know it, which means that her last name is going to be something we're already familiar with, means it's going to have plot importance, surely.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So it probably is Fritz. Or something like that.
Yeah.
What if she's an Ackerman?
What if
Oh
she's
my
a
God.
Jaeger?
I don't know. That would mean nothing.
could.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it
I
could be.
don't
What if
see-
she's like Aaron's grandmother or some shit like that?
But would that have any significance on the plot? Like I'm trying to think like okay, so if she was an Ackerman, how would that even have significance?
Because
Like,
she'd be
towards
immune
the
to mind
Deep
wipes.
axe powers.
Well, she's got to be at least part Elodian, otherwise she couldn't shift.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
That's
yeah,
true.
that's implied. Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of emphasis on last names and like heritage, but in Ymir's case, I'm not sure entirely. Unless it's like, oh, she actually is Ymir Fritz, who was just like turned into a mindless Titan randomly.
Scott,
I mean, that's the.
Psychic mind wiping, baby swapping bloodlines.
do you remember
There we
when we
go.
complained about all this shit like 30 chapters ago?
Surely
I
or
complain about
I
it
remember.
every chance I get, I complain about it because it's just ridiculous how there's so much emphasis put on the last names that make. I don't know.
You guys have had like 2 years to get over it.
It's
so,
still a relevant complaint,
Well,
sir.
At this point in the story, I understand why he was placing so much importance on the bloodlines because now we're now that we're getting into such heavy.
we can't talk about how the Jews are dirty if we don't talk about why the Jews are dirty.
Well, exactly. We're getting into such heavy like analogies to this whole like Holocaust and ethnic persecution and ethnic cleansing, that kind of aspect of things. I mean, explicit ethnic cleansing as far as the story has been concerned. It makes sense that the bloodlines and kind of ethnicities have been playing a large role in the story up to this point.
Well, sure. For themes, I completely understand. It makes sense from
Well,
a
just even
storytelling
just like
perspective.
plot's sake, because
Well, I
it
don't
seems
know
like he's
about
been
plot,
working towards
though.
it for a while.
Because it helps the plot if you look backwards. But going forwards, Ackerman's, it seems like the only ability is their combat prowess, which, again, that's already that's already happened with the character, so that's not going to progress any farther.
Is it an innate skill to begin with?
I don't know, but it is apparently.
How his ability to turn into a Titan an innate skill?
Well,
let's talk about some fucking magic bullshit in chapter 88. Let's talk about mind wipes. You want to go there?
Well, nobody wants to. But that's what I was going to say. Is the other thing for Ackermans is the mind wipes, but we now know there's not going to be pretty much any more mind wipes going forward.
I would hope.
So then what benefit would it having, oh, you're an Ackerman? Okay, cool. So no more mind wipes, not going to happen. You're already strong, so there's that. There's no importance given to if Yumiya was an Ackerman. What would that? Oh wow! Now we can finally do what?
I agree with you, Scotty. I think the whole Ackerman thing was really. I thought it was stupid then. I still think it's stupid now. And
what if combining all of the bloodlines, the Fritzes, the Rices, the Elodians, the Mare, and the Ackermans,
creates
in one baby, and giving that a shifter power just creates God or something? What if this story is all leading forward to Ymir and Zeke having a baby?
Then I'll stop reading.
Golden Compass bullshit. They try to kill God.
I can't wait until something like that actually happens.
It's off the boil. We'll see where it goes.
Boy, oh boy.
It's getting interesting.
The next thing that happened in the actual chapter was Dina getting injected and then kicked off the wall while Grisha gets all mad about it.
This is Sparta!
Looks at
as we know now,
doing her combat roll down the sand.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Well, as we know now, she's the one who took that big chop out of Grisha's new wife, so that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
A little jealous. I don't blame her.
That's Isayama's little dig at us asking questions about Grisha moving on too quickly.
Yeah, he called it.
He knew somebody would think about that. That's what he did.
Although you're right, it is very interesting that we talk about Dina, and the big reason why is because the owl covered up the fact that she had royal blood. Grisha at the very end is like, "There's royal blood inside of her. Why is she doing here?" And he's like, "Shut the fuck up, dude. I didn't tell them about it." Kind of the implication is like, "Don't let them know." So maybe the owl's plan was to not have her die, and knowing that as a mindless titan, she would at least be, quote unquote, alive, and that blood would be, maintained. That blood would be at least preserved in that mindless titan. Bit of a risk, but better than having the Marlians get a hold of her and do whatever nasty stuff they wanted to do with her blood.
Exactly, but that was the part I didn't understand, which was, it seems like you just said, Ryan, the implication was the owl was sparing her from a life of, breeding, essentially. But why would the Marleys, why would they want to breed royal blood people?
So that they could have tons of slaves ready to take the Titan power of the first king.
Wouldn't that give them some sort of political power as well?
That too.
It all depends on how you do it.
What's different from the royal blood that's different from just regular Aldi blood?
The difference.
What's different about Ackerman blood, dude?
The difference.
We don't know.
The difference is that Dina's section of the family is the one that did not flee the Mar Island, decided to stay at the Mar continent or whatever, and
she's
because
still
they
directly descended from Ymir.
Because they stayed behind, they stayed within the system, I guess. You know what I mean? They still had some sort of political factor within the actual Mars society.
But when I was reading that part, it seemed like ECM was trying to imply there was some obvious reason that the reader should be able to understand why, of course they would want to breed her and get pure royal blood lineage going. And it's like, I don't get that.
Like I said,
I think
want
that's
it
political.
so that they can have lots of puppets that they can put the coordinate onto.
I think beyond that, it was just a case of the owl recognizing that it's just there was a power there that he didn't want in the Marlians' hands. I mean, because he knew that to some degree that could be benefited by them and exploited.
Right, and until they get that power, that bloodline, they can't use the coordinate.
Oh, right, to the full extent. I forgot about that.
True.
Or at all.
It's a bit of a long con plan.
Sure, so they were going to make them into child soldiers with the royal blood so that they could take the coordinate and use the power.
Basically, yeah.
I see.
Because people without the Fritz bloodline can't use it at all.
Well, they can use it to some extent, because Eren used it.
The only times we've seen Eren use it is when he's touching a Fritz or Rice, though. So.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
We saw him activating it.
He commanded the Titans to attack, whatchamacallit, when he was nowhere. He was only... No,
right,
Eren.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah, but that was...
Yeah.
That was after he had already or after he'd already touched the Dina.
That's what you're saying, Zach, that it initiated it. He didn't have to be touching them every time he used it. Right?
Well, I'm saying that basically, like, he touches the Fritz, it's good for a bit, like, he gets, like, a key to access it for the next half hour, and then a half hour later, the server admin comes in and revokes his privileges or something.
I kind of thought it, like, he, unlocked the ability, and then he's just good to go from there. But maybe, I don't know, maybe right, maybe there's
the theory on this is that it's actually an active connection, not like a temporary connection.
Sure.
It's pretty clearly a Wi-Fi connection if you read Chapter 88.
So, going back to
Wi-Fi sickness confirmed.
Getting there again.
I really do like the line before she gets stabbed, where she goes, Grisha, no matter what I become, don't worry, I'll find you.
I'm glad you reminded me that. I totally
hilarious
that she finds his new wife and kills her.
Yeah, she did find him.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to mention that, because that's the Walking Dead reference I wanted to make. Because recently there was a character that got killed who said that exact line, the no matter what happens I will find you person name.
Find him as a zombie?
Yeah.
Okay, Liam Neeson.
So anybody who's seen the newest season of The Walking Dead and sees that dialogue right there, they should see that crossover.
Yeah,
of course, I'm the only one here that gets that, so...
I know, but it's okay. I'll believe you.
It's an awesome...
So can someone remind me exactly, because I know it's something that I should know, but, like, what was it that Eren did exactly that was illegal? That he's
disobeying orders.
What was it?
Yeah, by going against Levi.
The whole exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And to be fair, they deserved it. They were being little bitches, but it all worked out.
Chain of command and whatnot.
Yep. Mikasa looks like shit.
So yeah, moving forward in the chapter, the next thing we see is...
Sorry, I'm just saying her hair's all messed
just
up.
out of nowhere.
She just looks like she was just stuck in a jail for days.
He said it, not me. Funny enough. But the next thing we go to...
I'm not gonna lie. I'm digging the prison style. She looks a lot more laid back than...
They're gonna be hardened from prison life now.
Yeah.
So
maybe she'll soften up a bit.
The next scene we get to is Eren waking up from that nightmare in his cell and talking to Armin, going, "Hey, what happened? Where am I? What's going on?" I need to address this now, because this is going to bother me reading the rest of this chapter again. Why is it that we're looking at these characters inside the cell when they're, like, grabbing the bars? It looks like their heads are reaching through the bars.
That's just how Isayama is always drawn.
He erased the lines around, like, on the bars, like, that would be going through their head from where they're putting... Look at that panel where Eren says, to Armin.
Yeah.
The bar's going through his head.
And do you know about those gifs of, like, when they purposely...
I'm sorry, the what?
Do you know when those things have the bars going through them and it purposely tries to make the effect of it's 3D? Are you guys aware of those?
Yeah, I get you.
That's the exact effect that Isayama's either purposely or I would assume hopefully not purposely but unintentionally is committing here. The bars make it look as if the picture's 3D, so it looks like half the body's out and half the body's in. So it's kind of weird like that.
It really bothers me.
I mean,
looking
obviously,
at that panel.
we don't have to say it's very clearly just an artistic choice to make it easier to see the characters.
Right.
Which he's done throughout the entire series.
It looks like Eren's head is impaled on a bar.
Maybe it is.
Which it should be.
Armin too in that one scene, and he's outside the damn cell. Look at that one on the bottom left.
While we're talking about this, I actually really want to reiterate how much better Mikasa looks. I think, like, this whole, like, I don't know. My opinion is just, like, it looks like a totally different character in
the
this
one
whole,
on
like,
the bottom right where she asks him why he's crying, that one I'll agree with you on. That one looks good.
Yeah. And then even the next page too, I'm like, wow, that looks like an entirely different person.
It really does, honestly.
I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what she needs. She just needed a bit of jail time.
I can't believe I'm the only one bothered by the bar thing.
I thought it was odd at first, but then I got over it because I realized it's just, it's just artistic choice.
Driving me nuts.
Go to page 27 at the bottom towards the right side. Armin's like a ghost. See, he's phasing through the bars to kill Eren.
Right. That's what I meant when I say he was like outside the cell and he was still fucking phasing through. That shit's driving me nuts.
It's the ghost of the first king within Armin.
God, kill me.
Okay.
Please.
Now taking new applications for host of a Cast on Titan.
Please do. Fuck me. Anyway, so yeah, they woke up in the prison cells. They're all bummed out. Shit sucks. Nothing's cool. It's all bad. And we have that scene where Armin's asking Eren what's going on, and Eren's talking about how he dreamt the stuff that was in the book, and he realized that everything that Grisha had said in those books was true, and he realized what happened to Dina, and he realized who Dina was, and it had that split panel of Eren and Grisha, both with that single teardrop at the same time. That's pretty neat.
What does that make Dina in relation to Eren? Because it's his dad's ex-wife.
It's his cuck master.
Stepmother? Does that make her a stepmother?
No, that's the thing. I'm not sure, because I think the stepmother would have to be.
See, now we're just going into harem dynamics.
It's like ex-stepmother.
I think it's.
How do you become an ex-stepmother?
I think,
doesn't that mean you have
to
to be dead?
Because she is in no way related to him, other than the fact that she was his father's.
Well, a stepmom's not either, are they?
Well, no, but the difference is that a stepmother would still be married to your father.
Well, then she was until she died.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it really counts if she's a Titan.
So if Dina had lived at the time that Grisha had went off and banged Carla, that would make Dina Eren's stepmom, right?
Well, no, because Carla would have been his. I mean,
Carla would have been the mom, clearly.
I don't know if it really counts as stepmom.
I guess I see what you're saying.
I don't know.
Can we just like phone a friend on this and just call a Mormon and ask?
Yeah, I don't know how this family shit works. I don't know.
Yeah, call up the Salt Lake. We need your genealogies, please. They're so good at genealogies. It's unreal.
Yeah.
I think ex-stepmom would be appropriate. I'm going with it.
That's what I was thinking. Anyway, the point is that the only real relation is that it means that Zeke is Eren's half-brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Would it be acceptable to just call her cousin?
No.
No?
No, she's a cousin.
Isn't that the name you give to relatives when you don't know what part of the tree they're from?
A cousin is...
I know what a cousin is.
A cousin is the child of one of your parents' siblings.
What I'm saying is, when you don't know what they are, you call them a cousin.
Oh.
The only thing extended about that family is Dina extending her arm to eat new mom.
Ho ho ho.
Oh, Zinger.
Do you think Santa Titan was like a jolly old guy before he got turned? Do you think the fact that his Titan had a beard was like predicated by the fact that he must have had a beard before that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, he was in these new chapters, so yes.
So do you think that like if he had shaved before he got turned into a Titan, he wouldn't have a beard?
You know what? This raises a good question actually, because if we think about the female Titans that we've seen, they've all had tits and asses, right? But if we look
they have at least a female figure.
The Smiling Titan didn't.
I was about to say, if we look at Dina's Titan, she doesn't have that as much, so there's a little bit of difference there.
I mean, the only other female Titans we've seen are shifters, though.
Well, to be fair, Ymir
there was that one in the anime that we saw that...
Ymir's a female Titan, and she doesn't have any of that, other than the hair.
That's also true.
Really,
I was thinking of the one from the Attack on Trost.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's just an anime-only fuck-up, though. Going back to facial hair, I mean, Grisha has facial hair in his Titan form too, so maybe it is if you shave, you get. Which is hilarious that we're even talking about this, but what an absurd detail, though. Yeah. I mean, judging by Zeke, he never shaves anywhere, apparently.
No, yeah, there you go. That's the real key. He's just a hairy guy.
Yeah, after the jail cell scene where we see Dina walking away in her Titan form. And we see Grisha giving Gross shit about how his sister Faye was killed and torn apart by dogs. And Gross doesn't give a fuck. He says, I remember now, little boy.
Oh, yeah. He's like, oh, that was pretty funny.
Fucking shitbag. He says, why don't we turn this other guy into a 3-meter Titan and the two of you can fight to the death? That'll be funny, right?
It's a good idea, honestly. I would appreciate it.
I like that line because it actually does confirm to us that the amount of serum used directly affects how big the Titan is.
I don't know. There's that one panel of on page 34. The middle panel shows he's got that thing pulled back. Looks like all the way, almost.
Well, that's pretty interesting what Zach's saying, because it did sound like from the way he phrased it that there was, some element of control over how tall they were going to make him.
Well, they got a crack science team over there at the Mar.
Yeah, and even if it was pulled back, we don't know how much they pushed in.
And by that, I mean good, not like they make crack.
Yeah, I got that. They're crack cocaine manufacturers.
Right.
Slinging 8 balls. Real classy.
Yeah. His sister just wanted to see an airship. That's all she wanted. To borrow from the character status chart, the only thing she wanted was to see Led Zeppelin live.
It's a pretty jealous.
Pretty reasonable request.
It is interesting you bring that up though, because it does highlight kind of her importance in the story, because obviously she's kind of this paragon of innocence, in the sense that she really did nothing wrong, and look how she just kind of like got mercilessly slaughtered. Well, and how it plays into the rest of the story with, even from the very start of the series, when you're talking about like, why is it fair, all these people who are dying unjustly, and kind of how unfair life is, we're stuck in the walls, we're outside, et cetera, blah 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 blah. And again, it goes back to the what we were saying before with this whole shades of gray, blah blah blah. But yeah, who is truly innocent? Because it seems like the only people who are truly innocent are the ones that get killed off early. Even actually, what's even funner? We'll go a step further. Look at the guys from the 104th. Look at your Marcos and your guys who were pretty much like all in it for like good-natured reasons, and they really were innocent. You know what I mean? Like you could tell from the reaction that Marco had when he found out about RBA, and just how like basically how naive he was, and kind of how just like out of the blue it seemed for him, and he just didn't get it. And even the idea that people were joining the Survey Corps or the military police or whatever for selfish reasons, and his reasoning was because he wanted to protect the king. And look where it got him. He ended up just fucking axed. Whereas you see all the people who are still alive, most of them seem to have some kind of moral questionability. There's some questions about their morals. They've done some things that are arguably unseemly from really all aspects, because I think even our main people, Aaron, Armin, and Mikasa, are not, their hands are not clean, and clearly they've obviously shed their innocence and naivety as the story has progressed to this point.
I think the track record leans in that direction, but not entirely, because we have characters like Marlowe, who had a very innocent sort of goal that he wanted to rebuild the military police, and sure, he lasted a while. And on the other hand, we have people like Connie and Sasha who don't seem to have any sort of corruptedness to them at all.
They don't seem to be doing anything really.
Couldn't be killed by the force of God here.
Seems like it.
For all the relevance they have left.
But then we go back to the conversation. Oh, go ahead, Scotty.
I mean, I was just gonna add to what you were saying about that pattern of if you're innocent, then you're not made for this world. And I think that's what the owl was kind of saying. And now that I'm about to say this, and I'm realizing this is going into 88, so I'll actually just stop myself. I'll say for 88.
Thank you.
Save it for the podcast.
I agree.
Save it for the future podcast in the future. Yeah. So
I thought that was an interesting point, just pointing her out. But anyway, like you were saying, Stiller?
After Grisha had brought that up to Gross and they had that dialogue back and forth, we go to the "you're the real killers, no, you're the real killers" argument between the two of them that we had earlier in the podcast.
You are.
This is where that fits in. No, you're the killer. No, you're
a puppet. No, you're a puppet.
Right. You're the puppet. There's no puppet here. You're
I'm sorry.
I'm not. There's no puppet. No puppetry. Yeah. No puppet going on here. Grisha goes, "Your history, it's lies. Everything you know is a lie. We know the truth. We're the smart people. You're the wrong. We're the right."
Right? Are we?
Who knows? Such a clear back and forth. And Grisha even goes on to this diatribe. He sounds like a fucking pastor. And he's talking about our ancestor Ymir. She was so great she used the Titan's power to till the wasteland into fertile fields. She built roads, and she made roads for the mountain passes, and she created bridges. She brought all this shit to the people. She made us rich. She brought all this stuff to the land. But you're all a bunch of assholes, and none of the stuff you're saying is true, and we're the right ones. It's great.
Yeah. It's like we just talked about. It's the age-old question, what came first and who started the conflict.
Chicken and the egg.
And and Isayama really doesn't. It appears as though he has no intention of correcting or deciphering who's actually to blame.
I wouldn't. That'd be a terrible thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think he wants it to be in the reader's mind. Keep it questioning these people and these factions are morally gray, both of them, and they both have reasons in their own minds. So it would kind of like subvert that entire theme if he all of a sudden was like, actually, these people are the true enemies. Then it would be like, oh, well, now it's no longer like a question of who's right. It's more of, we have to root for the side
Let's
that's
throw
better.
Out like 80% of the development over the last 20 chapters.
Right.
So the next thing that happens in the chapter after that is the, I don't know if you want to call it a betrayal, but the kickoff from Kruger.
Kickoff?
From literally kicking off Cross off the wall.
The gentle push.
Oh, was it a push? Should I have said push off?
It was like a forced push too. It looked like there was some Jedi mind tricks going on there.
Yeah, so
that looked really cool.
He did the push off and sent Kruger to hang out with the Moe Titan, and they partied for a little bit. And
that's one word.
Yeah.
Party.
Then the owl revealed himself as the owl. He even did like the Terry Bogard hat throw.
I'm the owl.
Right. To reveal himself.
I am the owl who knocks.
Right. I did like Mustache Man before he got his ass pushed off the wall, where she was asking, why are you doing this? Why are you making these people eat each other? And it's like, because it's fun. Why else? Watch humans get eaten by monsters. And of course, then he goes on to say, well, you're not really human, so it doesn't count. But obviously, the guy's a bit of a psycho.
What a fun character that was.
You bring back the Coliseum. What are we doing?
Yeah, no shit. Are you kidding me? Who wouldn't pay to go see that? Kill each other? That'd be awesome.
Did you see that guy got disemboweled? Whoa!
Yeah, sick! I got a picture of it.
I mean, let's be real.
I'm going to send it to his family.
I say this as someone who's a huge sports fan. Like, some of the sports we watch are not really a huge amount better. I mean, obviously, there's, we don't want people dying, but so they're pretty physical. It can be pretty rough. And you look at the stands when everybody's drunk and fucking screaming. And it's a great time. I love it. I love it. But
the UFC
you kind of get those shades of blood sport. You know what I mean? Where you're like, wow, we really aren't that different from people that were a couple thousand years ago.
Well, I mean, to take it even a step farther than that, think about MMA, UFC. I mean, it's literally people beating the shit out of each other. And everyone's like,
UFC exists. Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is primal. That is primal instinct.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Bloodsport exists, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
That's true. Blade Runner. I would, it doesn't directly relate to it, but.
Oh, Bloodsport was an actual it wasn't a real fight, but the movie was like a fight, tournament style, fight to the death kind of,
Sure.
Was it real?
Good movie.
Gladiator, which was literally.
Gladiator.
Exactly
that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, if we would be on the nose about it.
Yeah. I think Bloodsport's a little less so, but that's a good one still.
Oh yeah, I know.
basically real.
So yeah, after the owl reveals himself, he teaches Grisha how to turn himself into a Titan, and he breaks his blade in the process, and then we get the final panel.
I didn't see himself break it.
And then we get the final panel of the Kruger in his Titan form going down to the port, and then putting the boat over his neck, literally doing the torture rack to the boat, which is, as we said at the top of the show, it's the best panel from this chapter. The torture rack of the boat.
It's pretty hardcore.
I would say it's tied for me with the force push. I really liked that.
You did the force push. It left a strong impact on you, huh?
You didn't like the guy getting his face eaten off?
That was a good runner out there. A lot of good images in this chapter.
I was like, oh no, his face is fucking coming off.
You know what, Scotty? You're right. I can see the hit spark, like between Kruger and Gross, where the impact was that he didn't actually hit. I see it. I see.
Oh yeah, he left a literal boom. It was a sonic, written out. It's a sonic boom.
It was a sonic boom.
Why did a push make a boom sound? You gotta think.
I want Kruger as
because it was actually a force push. You've got
That's
to remember.
What I'm saying.
You've got to remember, we confirmed that magic exists, so...
I want Kruger as a Street Fighter DLC character to fight Nash, who doesn't even have to whip his arms to throw a sonic boom.
Whip his arms.
That's how he does it. He takes his arms and bends them, and it creates.
Here's an interesting observation. Talking about that last panel, we have Kruger there doing this cool boat smash thing, right? And obviously now, with the 88 reveal, we know that the attack Titan, quote unquote, is the same Titan that eventually Eren gets, right? And we see here, obviously, it looks a whole lot like Eren when he's doing the boat thing.
Yeah.
I wonder if this was just an artistic oversight on Isayama's part, or if he was intentionally misleading. But remember when we see Grisha eating Eren, he doesn't really look like that at all. He's big, he's fat, his proportions are all weird, and he's got the beard, and he just doesn't really look like as similar to Eren's Titan as Kruger's does, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's a good point that Grisha does not look at all like Kruger's Titan.
But I wonder, like I said, if that's just an oversight from Isayama because he hadn't planned this far ahead, or if he just was intentionally trying to be misleading about it.
And also you have to imagine
there are those weird muscles in the shoulder, armpit area. Are those on any other Titans or even humans?
Bertholdt had those kind of.
Did he? Okay. Because they were really prominent on Kruger's, and looking it up, they're kind of prominent on Grisha's as well.
But you have to think that Isayama's art ability has been increasing throughout the entire manga, so it could be a matter of he just didn't flesh him out enough,
Boy, Grisha is just like wide load, man. Look at that.
Oh wow!
He looks like a barrel. He looks like a fucking barrel.
The Titans, the shifter forms are supposed to sort of resemble their human selves, so that's a good point that they don't really line up. You know what I mean? They seem Grisha in particular seems a little different, or a bit.
Yeah, I'll give him
still just want to see Armin's form.
Look at that sick chest hair pattern Grisha has. It's great.
Oh yeah.
So here's another question. Grisha was a shifter, and he ate the other shifter, which was Frida. Does that mean that those two Titan powers, which we all know are in limited supply, get merged into the one?
Yeah.
It appears so, yeah.
Well, if that's the case,
There's now
we
one-
lose
yeah.
one of the 9? Do we have 8 now?
That's what I'm thinking. They must have
Well,
lost
that's what
one.
everyone asks. It's possible that 88 material, that if Eren dies without passing on the power, it'll just get redistributed as 2 powers. There's really no way to know.
No, yeah, I would agree with that.
Oh,
Ymir originally had all 9, and then when she died, it split into 9.
Sure. Yeah.
This is like some Green Lantern shit.
Oh boy. Who gets the yellow ring?
We're not even done with the Green Lantern, but we can't go to
Dude,
yellow
where's that
yet.
fucking power gauntlet? What's it called?
Infinity
called?
Gauntlet?
Infinity
There you go,
Gauntlet.
the Infinity Gauntlet. That's the one.
And the fucking power, the Infinity Stones?
Sure.
Yeah.
Zorg or Zoran or Zoltar, whatever his name is. What's the bad guy?
There we go.
You know what I'm talking about.
I can't tell if you're talking about the Power Rangers now.
Are you thinking about
the big bad who has the Infinity Gauntlet?
Thanos?
Thanos.
There you go. Thank you.
You said,
Thanos.
what were you saying?
Said everyone at once.
Fucking Buzz Lightyear's arch nemesis. Fucking
There we go. Buzz Lightyear with the Infinity Gauntlet. That would be something else.
dude, game over.
There's
It's already there. It's already halfway there.
What about the Attack Titan with the Infinity Gauntlet?
The attack thing.
I don't think the gauntlet would fit, so.
It would not. And if he wore it, would he be able to cut himself?
Ooh, this is the question.
Pretty
the hard
edgy. I
question.
think he can cut himself no matter what.
It'd have to be his wrist instead of the actual hand.
That would fit.
It would. So yeah, I think we've pretty well finished chapter 87. I don't think there's anything left for us to cover. And
Let's do one last glance through.
yeah, we can do one last glance through, but we're not going to be addressing any questions yet. We're saving all of the questions until after chapter 88.
Oh man, big Kalamazoo.
We've got chapter 88. We've got the question segment left, and then we'll be all caught up. And we're on a good pace right now. We got to try and get that one last recording session in to try and
Or 2. It's probably going to be 2.
That depends.
No, it'll be 1.
That
We can
depends.
do it one. We can do it one.
That depends on the audience and the questions we get. Because if we get a lot, it might be smart to split them up. Because it's been known to take an hour.
We've got questions for 3 chapters.
Well. So thank you guys for listening to the Chapter 87 edition of A Cast on Titan. We're going to take a break and then come back here in a little bit for Chapter 88. So stay tuned.
Bye-bye.
Do